Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Magic gameplay. This time around we were playing as the Wood Elves against the High Elves on Death Pass. In my opinion, right off the bat, this is probably one of the worst, if not the worst matchup in the entire game. That is really saying something. There are definitely some tough matchups elsewhere. Bretonnia against Tomb Kings, Vampire Counts against Tomb Kings, Wood Elves against Dwarves. There's definitely other tough matchups, don't get me wrong, but I think this is literally the worst. And so, regardless, I did try to want to make a build that could counter essentially anything. If my opponent decided to go heavy on Shadow Warriors, if my opponent decided to go heavy on Dragon Princes, if he decided to go heavy on this sort of death ball of shooting, I wanted to be ready for it. I wanted to have some tools to deal with it, and so I kind of built around it, and hopefully around something I could counter it. For my Lord, I did decide to bring Orion. I think he's actually pretty solid in this matchup. He's got two bound spells with 3 charges each that actually perform rather well against squishy infantry. He does have Foe Seeker, he does have the Cloak of Isha, which gives him some sustainability, definitely more than you would otherwise expect, because Orion has pretty terrible defensive stats. He has 30 armor, he's got no ward save, and his melee defense is an atrocious 30, so if Orion's fighting anybody, he's going to be taking some nasty damage in return. He could be fighting even the wimpiest caster, and he's going to take some return damage. So definitely something to keep in mind when you're dealing with him, but he does have a lot of HP, and he does have that Cloak of Isha, which can help. Now, for the rest of the army, we do have 2 heroes. I did bring a Waystalker. The Waystalker might seem like a little bit of an odd choice, but I'm actually pretty fond of the Waystalker in this matchup just because he can pick away at Dragon Princes, and he can pick away at, slowly but surely, he can pick away at elite infantry, especially if you line him up from a flank. He can penetrate through their formation. He can often pick off 3-4 models with a single hit. Often, he's basically like a bolt thrower, or not really a bolt thrower. Bolt throwers tend to get stopped at one model, so he's kind of like a cannonball, really. And he can be picking off, if your opponent brings Swordmasters, if your opponent brings Sisters of Avalorn, as my opponent did here, they're back there somewhere, units like that, he can do really well against them, and just picking off their models, being a nuisance. He can also chip away at enemy lords. He does have 3 charges of Arrows of Crudeness, very solid in general. On the flank, my only caster, I did bring a Spellseeker of Beasts. Once again, to deal with elites a little bit, I did bring the Amber Spear, as well as Wiston's Wild Form. For my front line, it is 4 units of Eternal Guard, one of which is the Winterheart Guard, so pretty cheap, pretty cheerful, but we do have Silver Shields and some okay melee stats. They are backed by 3 units of Way Watchers, one of which is the Regiment of Renowned Hawkeyes of Drakira. On the flank, we do have Wild Riders Shields, as well as Sisters of the Thorn. Had my opponent gone heavy with, say, Skirmishers, I would have tried to zone the Skirmishers out with the Eternal Guard while killing off the peripheral sort of support units, like Dragon Princes, with say the Way Watchers, Orion, and the Waystalker. Orion's actually also not bad at killing large, which is another thing worth keeping in mind. He's pretty quick. He's got bonus versus large of 15, monstrous AP, and pretty good missile damage to boot. For my opponent's build, and I do apologize for my slightly nasally voice. I don't even know what I came down with, but just haven't been feeling the best lately. I'm not sure why, but either way, for my opponent's build, you can see that he's gone with a basically defensive box with a bunch of shooting, and this is a pretty common build that you see, unfortunately, pretty often. You can see 6 Spearmen, then the Science of Mathlin, so 7, I guess, in total. Science, of course, providing an AoE ward save. He does have 2 Archers, 2 Sisters of Avalorn, one of which is the Regiment of Renown, Everqueen's Court Guard, a Lithanar with all the kit. He's outside of these sort of shooty box builds, he's not the most common of picks. But he does have Slippery, he does have Mislead, he does have Moonbow, as well as Dark in the Sky, so huge reload speed bonus. He does have the Handmaiden of the Everqueen, once again reload speed bonus, and Foe Seeker, and then a Mage of Light with Net of Mintok and the Foss Protection, so some pretty brutal stuff there. He's also getting Guardian from the Pure Main Company back here, so definitely some potent stuff. The Pure Main Company will be providing some meaty AP if needed, and they do have some missile resist, so definitely have to be watched out for. Can't see the Waystalker already chipping away a little bit at the Everqueen's Scorecard, but regardless, we're going to throw things into fast forward. You can see the Moonbow shot there, wasted on the Waystalker, completely whiffs as the guy just ducks into cover. Now, at the moment, I wasn't really sure what to do. My opponent obviously brought a sort of new box, and except this sort of strategy does work against Wood Elves. So, initially, it was a little more than sort of poking with the Waystalker. I do actually take a hit there, I think, from the Lithanar, but it's a little more than poking, prodding my opponent, repositioning everywhere with his Sisters of Avalorn. And here I'm going to get a little bit greedy. I'm going to send out my Spellslinger of Beasts, looking to get a side shot in there with the Amber Spear. You can see I've positioned my cavalry out into the open. Now my opponent can definitely see them. We're pushing our Way Watchers forward. We're going to start pushing our Winterheart Guard after them. And here I do get a little bit greedy, and I'm going to pay the price. I push in. thinking I can get a nice little cast here into these spears and kind of wipe a good chunk of them out, and my opponent nets me down with Net of Mintok, which is immediately going to result in all this fire. So I don't even get the spear off. I actually get interrupted here. Now, on the flip side, I do get a nice little bit of barrage here from the Way Watchers. My opponent's completely ignoring them. You can see the Sister of Avalorn here getting diced up, but my Spellseeker of Beasts here completely shatters. You can see she's trapped there. She's not able to endure this barrage of death, and she completely topples over and she's dead. You can see that horse is just riddled with arrows. So a disaster. I have lost my Winds of Magic, roughly 800 gold investment, basically due to bad micro and greedy play, within the space of a few seconds. And honestly, you have to consider the fact that you've lost access at this point to the reserves of Winds of Magic. That's definitely pretty bad. Now, granted, my opponent here has taken an absolute beating. The Evergreen Scorecards have been routed off over here, and in return, I've only lost one unit or one model, or maybe a few models eventually off the Hawkeyes of Drakira, who are immediately going to shift fire and start chipping away at these second units of Sister of Avalorn, doing some collateral or sort of collateral damage there on the archers, and just dicing these guys up at their max range. They'll be doing so much damage. My opponent here definitely making a bit of a mistake, perhaps underestimate. He wanted to stay in range of the Way Watchers, and he's going to get just bombarded into oblivion by that barrage from Orion immediately after the Hounds going in. And these are such good spells against the High Elves. Unless the High Elves bring a sort of heavily armored formation, which is almost guaranteed to not happen, or if they bring Shadow Warriors, unless they do one of those two, Orion's bombardments are amazingly powerful against these sorts of infantry-based builds. And you can see they're completely decimating these Sisters of Avalorn. They're actually going to shatter. The archers are completely falling apart. And my opponent at this point has essentially lost the range duel. The Way Watchers are definitely mauled. The Hawkeyes of Drakira, and I don't have any heals for them. The Hawkeyes of Drakira here down to 38 models, 43 over there. But Orion can regen still a good chunk. Now my Eternal Guard, the Waystalker, they will push forward, and my cavalry is going to be able to start sweeping around the flank and trying to get into my opponent's backline. Especially because there's no archers to really threaten them. You can see I'm using the Arrow of Kurnus to just chip away at these high priority heroes. It's not going to do the most amazing damage ever. I don't know how. These have been 2 Arrows of Kurnus. They've done, about 900 damage. To be honest, that's not bad. That's about 450 a pop, so definitely not terrible. You can see the Eternal Guard here will get some charges into the Spearmen. These guys, of course, are whittled out on a good chunk. Now, my opponent is going to be able to rally some of his troops. His archers are coming back. The Evergreen Scorecard is coming back on just a handful of models. But at this point, I'm ignoring them. I'm focused entirely on the Pure Main Company, trying to annihilate them with that longbow fire. And they're not having a good time. Granted, these guys do have 30% missile resist. But against Way Watchers, that's not going to help too much. Then you can see they're just getting decimated. My opponent here is trying to chip away at my Eternal Guard with his sisters, but the problem is that these guys, I've essentially forced them away because they can't afford it. If they push too close, try to get shots on the Way Watchers, they're going to get diced up by the Way Watcher fire. In the back line, you can see the Wild Riders here are getting trapped, and that is going to allow my opponent to pivot his archers and shoot them in the flank, which is really bad. Now, I hit him with a Shield of Thorns to try to keep them intact, but definitely a big mauling here coming into the poor Wild Riders, so definitely some bad stuff. Now, outside of that fight, we can see Orion is in here somewhere. He's helping fight against these Spearmen. Not an ideal situation, but one of the cool things about Orion is that he has amazing offense stats. So even against high defense infantry, as long as he himself is not taking too much of the damage, he can actually dish out a lot of hurt. And you can see he's up to 76 kills already. He's just smashing through these spears. In the back line, the Sisters of Avalorn are getting matched by the Sisters of the Thorn. So Battle of the Sisters going down here. They're just tearing these guys to shreds. Sisters of Avalorn, while not a dedicated melee unit like, say, Doomfire Warlocks, are actually surprising, and of course they'll actually get dumpstered by Doomfire Warlocks. They're actually surprisingly decent in melee. They do have 34 melee attack, 33 melee defense, weapon strength of 28, and more importantly, they got 50% physical resist. So a lot of these units can't really do much damage to them, and you can see the Evergreen Scorecard here being completely dumpstered. The Wild Riders in there, they're pretty mauled, but they're doing some damage, and we are able to force these archers off. My opponent, because he was forced to pull these guys back a little bit, is actually going to get pounded here by the Way Watchers. I'm trying to take off these high. I know that ultimately I'll be able to take down Spearmen. I do hit these guys with some Curse of Honor just to make it a little less efficient. I do know I'll be able to take them down eventually. You can see Orion here coming in against the Mage of Light. But essentially, I do know that I'll be able to win this fight against the Spears. That's not in question. The real question is, and you can see another Net of Mintok going down, so rooting poor Orion in place. He's up to 100 kills. Really impressive stuff. But I do know that if my opponent does manage to keep these archers alive, he can still do quite a bit of hurt with them. And I do know that some of these backline troops are really a major threat. So I need to be taking them offline with the Way Watchers. I need to try to get them offline dead. Unfortunately here, the Mage of Light does net poor Orion, so he's getting pounded by archery fire. He's getting shot by the Handmaiden, by Alithanar. But unfortunately, my opponent isn't really able to defend his backline. You can see the Wild Riders getting in there, and my Way Watchers are swinging out wide. Now, had my opponent bottled me up at this pass, this could have been actually a pretty disastrous moment in the game for me, because the Way Watchers wouldn't have been able to pass past the Spearman, and my opponent wouldn't be able to take this backline fight in isolation. Over here, you can see Orion fleeing for dear life. He is down to 400 HP. He's going to get hit. He does have that. I do apologize. I'm just so nasally, but he's got his Clophisha proc. He's just running for dear life. So Mel Gibson over here just running away, trying to escape this angry mage who's been ticked off with the fact that he was beating the snot out of her earlier. But he does manage to get into the back of the Spearman line. He's actually going to drop their morale a whole bunch. He's actually going to terror out them. So this is going to be a bit of a win for me. The Way Watchers are smashing at the Mage of Light. She is actually going to rout just from the sheer presence of Orion, who mere moments before she was chasing off. And now things are really going to start going downhill for my opponent. You can see this is really kind of this portion is where things will really start going downhill. The front line buckles thanks to Orion's recharge. The Purman Company is basically gone. My opponent is trying to chase down my sisters Avalorn, who over here are idling. I don't even know why they're just sitting there. Yeah, they're just sitting. I don't know why. But regardless, they do start moving again. They are going to be able to get on top of these troops. They're going to get on top of these Everqueen Scorecard. They're going to be able to wipe them out for good. This time around, they're going to shatter on 4 bottles or something. So really late into the game, we do actually manage to shatter the Pure Main Company, and then it's off to cast the Mage of Light and force her off the field for good. The Wild Riders, in the meantime, mopping up these archers, which at this point is leaving my opponent on a bunch of isolated, spread out spearmen. Spears do lose to Eternal Guard in 1v1. It's not a super decisive loss, but it is a loss. You can see him using Shield of Thorns here to buff up the damage a little bit on the Eternal Guard, try to buff up the Waystalker a little bit, who is stuck in melee right now. As my opponent tries to recover, pulling his Spearman back into the fray, the Way Watchers are opening fire on his flanks. Elithanar basically out of ammo. Orion is actually regenerating back into decent competitive shape. And this is basically going to be game over. And at this point, the Hiles just don't have a chance. You can see some casts of the Hounds going down there. But at this point, ammo's out. Orion's still a feat on the field. And there's quite a lot of Eternal Guard and archers left. So definitely not a good situation. Regardless, looking into this game now, the problem is that it's very difficult to tell if a build will be great against High Elves or competitive against High Elves, because it's just how many builds the High Elves have. And I figured that this build, if my opponent went with anything, I'd have a chance. With the right focus fire, with the right micro, I'd have at least a fighting chance. Definitely, I felt like that I would have to be probably outplaying my opponent, but I did think that this build, no matter what my opponent brought, would have at least a chance. The Waystalker, odd choice. He only got 15 kills this game, and I think that comes down in part to me mismicroing him. I should have been using him probably to snipe at Lords throughout the game. He probably could have gotten some good value chipping away at the Handmaiden of the Everqueen who's sitting around, or the Mage of Light, just trying to pick him apart. Orion, absolute MVP, 149 kills, those bombardments, and the fact that he's a monster in melee, which is doing me proud. The Eternal Guard, they did okay. They held the ground. That was really all they were there for. This is a pretty cheap investment. Now, granted, were held up by comparably cheap investment, probably. The Signs of Mathlin, the Spearman, it was probably a pretty tit for tat bog down there in the front line. But the Way Watchers, amazing job. They shut down the archer line, annihilated the Sisters, and they taught them a lesson about who's the best archer on the block. The Sisters of Thorn and the Wild Riders, once again, another good disruption tool, great at sort of shutting down, mopping up units. Unfortunately, the Spellslinger Beast didn't work out, but that is not really the problem with the Spellslinger Beast. That was the problem with my micro. I just pulled in. I even saw the Mage of Light earlier, but I got greedy. I figured I could get the cast off without getting hit by another Mintalk, and I paid the price. Regardless, great game to my opponent, Fleece Johnson. I don't think this is necessarily the most competitive high health build against Elves. If you're going for a competitive, it is one of the builds you can do, but I think the more competitive builds are definitely Shadow Warriors plus Dragon Princes. I think that's probably the best build you can do. Throw Alariel on top of them for the heals. But this is definitely a functional, sort of viable build. One of the things you do need to do as a priorities, though, and this is kind of, my opponent get the nice little net on the Spellslinger of Beasts. But one of the things you want to do, really, is kill these Way Watchers. You need to be, the primary target for you as the High Elves needs to be to shut down your enemy archery. And my opponent just wasn't able to pull that off. So something that really, if I had any bit of advice here, is that you need to be killing the Way Watchers more than you need to be killing a Spellslinger of Beasts. Regardless, though, especially with Elithanar and the Handmaiden of the Everqueen, you can definitely be chipping away at the Way Watcher's strength, and it's going to do you much better. Orion, even if he cycle charges, can ultimately get beaten down by a bunch of Spearmen, because he's got such terrible melee stats. Regardless, though, my opponent get the nice little net on the Spellslinger of Beasts. One of the things you do need to do as a priorities, though, and this is kind of, my opponent get the nice little net on the Spellslinger of Beasts. But one of the things you want to do, really, is kill these Way Watchers. You need to be killing the Spellslinger of Beasts more than you need to be killing a Spellslinger of Beasts. Regardless, though, especially with Elithanar and the Handmaiden of the Everqueen, you can definitely be chipping away at the Way Watcher's strength, and it's going to do you much better. Orion, even if he cycle charges, can ultimately get beaten down by a bunch of Spearmen. Spell Singer, yeah, she can get some cats off with the Amber Spear, but honestly, against Spears, it's not going to be the end of the world. Waystalkers, similarly, not that important. Eternal Guard, they're just a grindy tool. You just got to cover your archers against the Cav, and I I do think that really my opponent should try to kill off the Waywatchers because they just were MVPs this game. They carried everything, basically. Regardless, good game. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below if you have not already. I do apologize for the nasally voice. I don't know why I'm feeling a little stuffy today. I'm hoping it passes quickly. But regardless, I do appreciate you all for watching. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe down below. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, anything like that, be sure to share them, and I will respond as soon as I can. As usual, I do appreciate you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.